My name is Jordan Redfield Wade. By day, I'm a philanthropist and private investigator, but by night, I protect the people of New York City in a different way.
My name, champ, is RedWing.
As she lay dying, I promised my mother that I would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, and I refused to let her down. I am the defender of New York City. I am RedWing. My office still smells like mothballs and dusty secrets. The office of the Arklow Detective Agency used to be the proud host of the country's oldest pagan bookstore. The oldest book in the shop was a manuscript from 1776. Some thick, crazy tome whose cover had long since faded, but whose first page said in big, bold letters, "The faith of the Negro pagans and savage Indians." Oh, whatever, it was a different time, but I can never get past that first page. I used to work in the little pagan store for years on the side until Joe's crazy aunt won the lottery and left it in my care as a present for graduating from high school. As of late, my caseload has been relatively slim. I know I'm one of the richest men in the city, perhaps even on this coast. Contrary to popular belief, I still have a few bills to pay. And while I definitely do have enough to live off of from the Redfield Wade estate, I've always wanted to live like a normal guy. Save for my training and RedWing supplies and the occasional gift to a friend, all of the rest came as payment from services rendered, or being contracted to work with the police department. I feel way more down to earth because of that. Our apartment this morning has one less teacup in it. When I got home, Johanna threw the teacup at my head. It missed, because I have really good reflexes, and it shattered against the wall. She shouted several expletives and managed to unsettle her hair even more than it already was. She managed always to have her hair perpetually perfect. She'd had this hairstyle, or at least a version of it, for years since we were teenagers. There was a time when she had tried to do the same look, but Jared wouldn't let her cut half of it. So we opted for the part that is short now to be cornrowed back into the same style. Even when she's in a fury, she's still one of the prettiest women I've ever met, and I feel fortunate to have her as an adoptive sister. I found the chocolate bar in the cabinet and shoved it into her mouth. She struggled for a second and began to calm down, like a screaming baby who has just been given a bottle.
Relax, Joe. I'm okay. I just took a stroll and wound up sleeping elsewhere.
Johanna raised an eyebrow, but kept eating the chocolate. I could tell she was wondering if I met someone, but I didn't really want to answer that.
You should be almost ready for work. Hey, by the way, can you look into this DNA for me when you get in?
I pulled out the note from a pouch on my tool belt, and the pen that was next to it back in the Northside Apartments.
What's this?
It's a letter, and I need to find the writer.
Joe stayed silent for a moment, before taking the note and nodding at me. She finished chewing, swallowed, and coughed a little before speaking.
Where did you wind up?
I was walking into the kitchen because I was positively starving. I'm always hungry after a night of crime fighting and falling off buildings like an idiot.
Did you hear anything over the comm after I said I was on my way back?
No, but why are you dodging this question? Did you meet someone? Was it Walters from Club Sparklers? Was it fun? Please tell me you used protection.
I shoved another piece of chocolate in her mouth and proceeded to pour my cereal.
No, and irrelevant. We'll deal with all of that later. I need sustenance. You need to go to work. Bring me back a name. If anyone can, It'll be you, my super genius lesbian.
Jo rolled her eyes and left the room. 2 minutes later, she was walking out of her door in her lab coat and waving to me. I wolf whistled at her, and she rolled her eyes as she closed the door. I took off my suit, finally, and walked around the house a little bit. I showered, shaved, and got dressed before leaving for the college center and the store that I was already an hour late to open. It was looking like I'd have to take the subway. Fortunately, our subway has been running fairly efficiently these days. When I arrived at the agency a half hour later, there was a person waiting for the agency to open. It was a woman, maybe in her early 30s, with pale skin and round sunglasses and a midnight blue sun hat, resting atop her classic red hair. She wore bright red lipstick and a midnight blue trench coat over top what appeared to be a black bodycon dress. She looked like a blue version of Carmen Sandiego, and I would have laughed at that, but she was also drop-dead gorgeous. She was clearly a woman who knew a thing or two about style.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you haven't been waiting long.
It's perfectly alright, dear.
I put the key into the lock and proceeded to jiggle it around. This lock was definitely old. I reminded myself that I needed to get it replaced. Her accent fascinated me, but what fascinated me even more was the classy dame vibe that I got from her. I both liked and was confused by this woman already. I pushed the door open and turned the sign in the window to open. I took my spot behind the desk before looking back at the woman.
Thank you for coming into the New Arklow Detective Agency. What can I help you find?
Yes, I'm actually here for one of those old pagan manuscripts.
She was looking in the direction of a cabinet that held books about druidic remedies and healing techniques.
I'm looking for the books from the author by the last name of Candle. I believe the title I'm seeking is Tarot, the Candle Sorcery Method.
Ah, right. I remember seeing that title. We definitely have that. It's right over here in the back.
Fabulous, dear. Thank you.
She came to the counter and went to pay for the book with a credit card. I waved my hand at the card.
Oh, no need for that. We don't charge for books anymore. I'm just happy to have them off my...
As I handed the book to her, she grabbed my wrist suddenly. I looked into her eyes and saw that they'd clouded over. When she spoke, it was with a deep yet layered voice than she had spoken with before.
Wait, beware the powerful plague as the crow flies. You have only half your own story. The ones you love hid something from you. You have much to learn, or your mission is over before it begins.
She released my hand, and her eyes cleared. There was a pause, and she seemed to come back to reality. She smiled as though nothing weird had just occurred. She grabbed the book and placed a business card on the table.
I will see you again very soon, dear. Thank you for your help today. Call me if you ever need any answers you can't seem to get on this side.
She walked out the door. I stood there, a little flabbergasted. What did she say? What did that even mean? Did I just serve a crazy woman? I looked at the card and read the name on it. Tarot by Scarlett, followed by a phone number and an address. I grabbed my cell phone and I texted Jo.
Yo, Carmen Sandiego just served up a prophecy and a business card?
Her reply was almost instant.
Wait, what?
Girl, I don't even know. Tarot by Scarlett?
Never heard of it. Got some weird news on that DNA.
That was fast.
It's easy when there's no match in the DNA anywhere in the system, no direct handwriting match in any system, no name, nothing. But something else did come up.
How is that possible? Doesn't the city have a policy about DNA sequences all being stored?
For residents, yeah, but maybe he's not a resident. National didn't come back with anything real.
So BlackBird doesn't legally exist then?
Guess so.
So weird.
Yeah, but what's weirder is the data. It came back as a partial match for your DNA. The percentage was 98.5% the same.
What?
The genes between a parent and a child, or between two siblings with the same parents, that's 75%. Identical twins are roughly 99.5% matches. You match up at 98.5. This would mean that BlackBird is your twin.
Obviously, BlackBird isn't my twin. I'm an only child. I think I'd know if I had a twin. Right?
Probably. You sure you never saw a face?
No, but I saw an empty apartment.
Research tonight?
You betcha.
I'll run point from the lair.
Oh god, please stop calling your bedroom the lair. It's disturbing.
Relax. I'm at your office anyway. Gotta go. Back to working.
I stopped texting Joe and set about doing work around the shop. It needed a bit of dusting, and cleaning would take my mind off some of the weirdness. The rest of the workday went smoothly enough. A gentleman came in asking me to determine whether or not his wife was cheating on him, and I had to tell him that she wasn't, but she knew about the affair that he was having, and she was meeting with a divorce lawyer. A woman came in trying to find her stolen cat, but there actually wasn't a missing cat at all. I had a conference call with one of the subsidiaries of the Redfield Wade Collective. Blah, 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 blah. It was relatively boring. That interaction with Scarlett got me thinking about my past, though, and the prevalence of magic in my life. Really, I had to take this seriously. Magic had, in large part, been around me my entire life. When my parents were around, magic took the form of imagination and storytelling, and the belief in mystery. After they died, I physically became something that, for lack of a better thing to call it, was magical. Is magical. Like, I have a weird connection to the world now because of my power. But I have a feeling that magic isn't just some force out in the world with no rhyme or reason. If it isn't that, then what is it? If nothing else, maybe she can reveal why I have the powers that I have, while my genetic sequence remains the same as most people. Honestly, whatever, just as long as it's not something stupid. If it's something stupid, I'm gonna be really upset. Finally, 5 o'clock came around, and I closed up the shop. I managed to save and locate one old dog and return it to its owner. I locked the door on my way out, and walked in the direction of the subway. But before I could get too far, I ran into someone I typically never wanted to see.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the so-called People's Champion.
Kit Mojito Carboni. Why did they always have a habit of finding me when I really didn't have time for them?
Well, hello, Kit Mojito Carboni. It must be a slow news day if you've come to darken my door.
It's hard to hold back my disdain for them, but let me be clear, my disdain with Kit has nothing to do with their non-binary identity, their appearance, or anything else personal. It has everything to do with the things that Kit has been writing about me in that blog of theirs. Kit had, on numerous occasions, called me aloof and out of touch, and that my choice to live amongst the population instead of in my gated estate was very Marie Antoinette, if you will. Never mind my parents having been murdered in front of me, and that being the reason that I didn't want to enter my childhood home. No, I'm just out of touch.
I've never claimed to be the people's champion. I only aim to help where I can. Is that a crime?
Of course not. But you certainly don't use all your resources to the causes you claim to support. Hell, you've even voted for legislation that hurt the people you claim to support.
That's a bluff. You have no way of knowing what I voted for, except for what I tell you. Are you saying you hacked into a government file, which is a Class B misdemeanor at best, and could lead to up to 6 months in prison? 'Cause, you know...
For example, the people would like to know, why is your mansion not being used currently when we need so many different services? You know, we need a drug rehab center, a homeless shelter, housing for battered partners. Why have you not turned it into any of those?
I think, and I'm almost positive I have told the people this before, and specifically told you before, that I personally have funded 8-floor apartment buildings for homeless families in multiple different neighborhoods, as well as multiple unlisted locations for battered partners, with access to all social services and a healthy relationship with the police and attorneys who can help the people involved and keep them safe. But if they must know, my family expressly told me to keep the Redfield Wade estate for my family specifically, as we have done for generations. Would you really begrudge my parents' last request?
And why would your parents say that? What are you hiding in your family home? Is it literal skeletons?
Just dusty books and old portraits. Oh, and my childhood memories, of course?
I just knew the article in the blog post would come. I had my Oscar speech prepared, and yet simple questions like this got me flustered.
I've not been able to sleep in that property since that night. You do know that murder case is still unsolved. Well, I'm not sleeping there until I've caught their killer.
That is oddly understandable. Shit. Well, alright. Now what about the missing men and women? The people are concerned that they've been kidnapped and are being held against their will somewhere. How are you helping locate them?
In the last 8 months, 12 women and 12 men across the city had gone missing. They were all of a sudden just taken. No bodies had been found or evidence that they'd run away. The police had been scratching their heads trying to find a reason or a mad person responsible, or any connection between the people who'd gone missing. They were all under 40, most of them were white, and most of them had active gym memberships. The men and women were fit and trim and generally attractive. I'd done a few searches in the last few weeks, hunting for leads, but I have not, as of yet, located anything. It was beginning to get particularly frustrating and dire.
I've got nothing. Do you have any leads? I know I'm using my time to track the ones that I have, but if you have anything to offer, anything helpful, it is your civic duty to say something.
He wouldn't have anything to offer. He just wanted to taunt me.
That isn't my job to tell you where they are. It's your job to find them.
Are you withholding information? Do you or any of your readers know anything? I'm being serious, Kit. Will you please ask your readers to come forward if they have any tips? Please, Kit, there are lives at stake here.
What would you give me in return? People don't just post things to my blog without paying to be featured.
Is it money you want? Are you joking?
No, I don't want money. I want an exclusive.
What?
I want an exclusive interview with the vigilante RedWing.
What makes you think I can give you that?
Listen, as much as you annoy me, I have to acknowledge that you're a good PI. You know your shit, and I know that if anyone can find him, it's you.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
You do that for me, I post this for you. Deal?
Kit extended their hand to me.
All right, fine. Deal.
We shook on it and went our separate ways. I felt like something between us had shifted with that promise. I know they can be annoying and have a tendency to cast me in a negative light, but in the time of need, I had to believe they would come through for me when lives actually depended on it. I would still make a note to check out the blog later. I held the Tarot with Scarlett card and looked at the address at the bottom. It wasn't really on my route home, and it was in a residential stretch of the city. I think there was maybe an Asian grocery store or a bodega bookending that particular block, but I don't remember seeing any signs for tarot readings. It was in the north side part of the city, but only just barely. I started walking towards that area. I opted to walk and not take the bus or the subway, because I figured it was just a 15-minute walk and it would help me save the planet. Most days I would make this journey about 6 minutes traveling by rooftop, but I didn't exactly feel like doing that today. Besides, I wanted the air, and I also wanted time to think. There would be plenty of time for rooftop jumping in a few hours when I had to go out on patrol. A bell clinked gently as I pushed open the door to Scarlett's office, though calling it an office is being a bit generous. I'm fairly sure she lived there. The first room was a sitting room. The room was lit by candles of varying colors. The walls were painted a deep purple, and the windows were covered by black curtains. In the middle of the room was a table covered with a deep green velvet tablecloth, a wooden chair, and a high, comfy back leather chair. On the table were several different decks of cards, a crystal pendulum, and a pocket knife wrapped in cloth. The floor was bare wood, and even through my shoes, my feet felt cold. I walked forward and touched the back of the wooden chair, and looked over the setup again.
Welcome, young Master Jordan, descendant of Redfield and Wade.
I turned towards the door that led out to the kitchen. Standing there in a long sheath dress made of black lace with fiery copper hair swept elegantly over her right shoulder, stood Scarlett. Her décolletage neckline popped her cleavage out in just such a way to be more regal than trashy. Nestled right above the cleavage was a pentacle pendant. Her nails were a vibrant emerald green that bordered on being actual gems, which matched her eyeshadow and her eyes. Her lips were painted a rosy red. Her smile seemed knowing, and I was at once enthralled and terrified by her. I found myself thinking for a moment, God, I wish Joe was here. Scarlett is exactly her type.
So, you know my name already? Glad you can Google.
I didn't mean to come off as a dick, but I'm used to having people know who I am.
Ah, right. The skeptic with every reason to believe. I almost forgot how committed some people can be to their denial.
She sat in the high-backed leather chair and rested her elbows on the table. I opened my mouth and closed it again. I wasn't actually prepared for that level of shade. I was also distracted by the accent that I'd noticed before. It was truly quite lovely, and I could listen to her speak all day if I wasn't careful.
Let's not pretend that I don't know why you've come here. You have questions. I saw you had them earlier today, and I left my card at the counter for just that reason. And while I don't have all the answers at present, there are a whole host of ways to receive answers. Please take a seat, and we'll begin.
I sat, and she indicated for me to choose a deck. I chose the one on the far right because the back of the cards were emblazoned with a series of birds in flight. She seemed not to be surprised, fanning out the cards and flipping and shuffling them. While she did that, she hummed a really beautiful song that I thought I could almost recognize. She stared at me while she did this, her eyes boring deep into mine. I only tore my eyes away when I felt a sharp pain on my fingertip. I looked down and realized that with the knife she'd cut the tip of my finger and was dabbing the blood that was now pouring out of it onto the deck and the crystals. I looked up, concerned, and held my hand tightly. I was more than a little angry.
What the
Oh, relax, it's been sanitized. I'm a soothsayer, not an idiot.
Oh look, this one's got jokes.
This will help the deck get in touch with your questions. You have a few, but we'll reach each of them in due time. Let's start at the beginning, though.
She fanned out the cards, face down, and had me select 3 of them. She arranged them in order before me, before flipping the one on my left. It was a woman holding a pentagram above her heart, her body obscured and encircled by black wings. Below the picture, it said, High Priestess.
I can tell you that your first question is about wisdom. Based on your energy, I would venture to guess that you want to know how magic works, particularly the powers that are relevant to you.
My eyes widened. She knew I had powers, without me telling her, or having used them in her presence. I nodded, and she smiled, and began to explain.
Magic is energy, but it is a force divided into 5 types and 5 planes. These types are spiritual, physical, psychic, life or vitality, and astral. Spirit is powered by ancestry and the souls of the dead. Physical is matter and energy on the physical plane. Psychic is the connection between minds. And astral is the soul plane belonging to the living. And the life force, the vitality force, is the energy in our blood. In order to be alive, you have to have that last one. All living beings have these within them, whether or not they can control a few of them. You possess the gift of force fields, yes?
Yeah, but how did you...
If you keep asking me how I know things, we will never get through this, my dear. You possess a power that mixes these planes. Your force fields are a mix of psychic energy, physical matter, and astral energy. Magic can be made up of any single one of these, or combinations thereof. Every time you create a force field, you're combining physical, astral, and psychic magic all at once. The ability to manipulate these energies and planes is what's known traditionally as magic. Does that make sense, Jordan?
Actually, well, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's a little frustrating for me because I like to see how things work.
But that's just it, isn't it? You can see it if you pay attention close enough.
I suppose I'll have to open my third eye then, right?
You honestly might just want to consider doing that. It might be helpful for you in ways you can't even imagine.
A private eye with a third eye? That sounds like a bad joke. But I'll keep my eye on it.
Certainly. Now, you've got a sub-question here, so select another 2 cards.
I did as she requested, and she flipped them over. They were the Tower and the Justice card.
Okay. Your sub-question here was, where did your power come from? I'm afraid my answer is a bit vague, but it came from struggle. Something tumultuous in your past that isn't necessarily visible. This will require further examination.
I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut me off with a wave of her finger.
It isn't necessarily the death of your parents. That was the activating incident, of course, but it may have involved them before, when you were much younger. But it is cloudy. Also, no, in case you haven't guessed this, I am not telepathic. I can't read your active thoughts. I can, however, clearly read your face and body language, and your palms and hearts are as open as a book. Last I did Google you a little bit.
Aha! I knew you had.
Well, of course. How else could I have found your shop?
Fair point.
She flipped over the second card I'd originally drawn. It was the Magician card.
This card is about your mission. You're here to make your city righteous again. You live for the hope of justice. You walk the talk in terms of fighting the good fight.
She paused, and then grinned as she looked into my eyes.
Ah, I can see it now. Of course. RedWing. I must say, you look taller in costume. Must be the boots.
I froze. How could she have guessed that? Is she a better detective than I am?
Well, I had heard of you. Cleaning up the streets in Revenant Heights and Falcon Village, all by your lonesome. We are pleased to have you in the city, but the Parcelli family are markedly less happy, of course.
Well then, glad to hear news of me is spreading.
I wouldn't be so glib about it. You're definitely putting yourself in danger, and you need to be careful.
I'll bear that in mind, but it won't stop me.
Oh, of course it wouldn't. I wouldn't want you to. We need you in the city. I've been here for a few years, long enough to know that this city needs saving from time to time.
Well, I'll do my best.
Of course you will. Now, for your last question.
She flipped the last card as I asked the question aloud.
Who is BlackBird?
Who indeed? The card is lovers. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean romance. BlackBird is someone who is your other half, your true equal. A person who you are drawn to even without knowing why or who they are. Blackbird saved you from something horrific the other night, saving you from the very connection that you felt. My professional advice? Seek him out, as you may have some answers for you. You will be seeing more of him in the future, possibly sooner than you might think.
Well, that's, helpful, I guess?
I had to admit, it was kind of nice to have some answers, and a new directive. I reached for my wallet.
What do I do for this?
She waved her hand dismissively like I had towards her earlier.
You owe me nothing. This one was on the house. Please do come back anytime you like.
She smirked and stood up and turned to head out of the room before she turned back to me and narrowed her eyes like a sultry cat.
But next time, do bring your friend Miss Johanna.
I'll make an introduction. Here's my cell phone number.
We exchanged contact info, and I knew that Joe would be very pleased. I got up to leave and held my hand out for a handshake. She presented her hand in a very classic manner, and I knew what she expected me to do. I took her hand and I kissed the dorsum of her palm.
This has been simply enchanting, dear. Please send referrals from your clients to here if you can. I love a good story.
She smiled, indicating a poster and more business cards. I nodded, agreeing to hang them in the agency the next morning. As soon as I was out the door, I began texting Joe.
I think I just got you a date? Also, I found out kinda how magic works.
1, you're a saint. Hope she's cute. 2, it's magic, isn't it? Doesn't that mean there's no set way it works?
It's magic, but it's magic energy. I'll explain over dinner. I should be there by 7.
What are you cooking tonight?
P.D. Wong's?
Ugh, beats Arktown Market.
Damn Skippy it does.
There was a pause during which Johanna had obviously rolled her eyes and shaken her head.
Who even says that anymore?
I'm bringing it back. TTYS.
I dipped into the subway. A hearty dinner tonight was in order. My detective work was going to have to be serious tonight. Finding BlackBird was bumped up to the number 1 priority.
Thank you for listening to RedWing, the audio drama podcast. RedWing is written, directed, and produced by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. That's me. The cast of RedWing includes J.V. Hampton Van Sant, Amanda Jacobson, Chris Green, Dane Shiner, Simon Weeks, Christine Osimo, Skylar Paring, John Buckley, Brittany Nicholson, Lucy Fitzgerald, Kenyon Lang, Katie Hearn Church, Nathan Foster, Atticus Jackson, Rhett Hall, and Kiara Jeter as Birdkeeper. RedWing's official musician extraordinaire is Nico from We Talk of Dreams. Additional music from Kevin MacLeod. The RedWing logo is designed by J.V. Hampton Van Sant, and official character art is from the fantastic Click Art Studios. We would like to thank the following shows for being inspirations and or being involved in the podcast itself. Wine and Crime, Crime and Color, Queen's Podcast, Brain Trust Brothers Podcast, Gravity Beard, The No Sleep Podcast, Conjuria, The Cryptid Keeper, Deliberations, Getting Off Podcast, Spirits Podcast, the entire family at Blazing Caribou Studios, and everyone in the #Audio Drama Sunday family. If you would like to support the show, buy official RedWing merchandise, or if you just want to stay in touch, all of our links are in the show notes and on our website, redwingpodcast.com. Be well, stay safe, and fly high, heroes.